This is a public service announcement.
It isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. H to the OV.
Welcome to the Next Play podcast series brought to you by Game Plan. My name is Vin McCaffrey, and I'm really excited about our guest today, Tom McMillen. Tom's resume is amazing. University of Maryland basketball alum, Hall of Famer, Rhodes Scholar, U.S. Olympian, played in the NBA, successful career as a U.S. Congressman, successful career as an entrepreneur that now runs the Lead One Association for College Athletics. We cover off on a number of topics all around the student-athlete experience. There's no one more qualified than Tom McMillen to talk about the student-athlete journey, and we do just that. We cover off of the landscape of college athletics all the way into specific examples of the student-athlete, the experience, the opportunities, and even the challenge facing our young people today. It's a great discussion. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Let's jump on in. Thanks. Hi, this is Vin McCaffrey, and welcome to the Next Play podcast series. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Tom McMillen. In all respects, Tom is a textbook definition of a scholar athlete and kind enough to join us here today. So thanks, Tom. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you. Tom and I've gotten to know each other a little bit over the last year and several conversations, and it's been a pleasure to get to know Tom and all that he represents. I'm just going to hit the highlights because it's just phenomenal to walk through a bit of your resume. You're an all-everything basketball player coming out of high school, play for Coach Dreisel at University of Maryland. You stop me if I'm wrong. Chemistry major, U.S. Olympian, played on that infamous game versus the Soviet Union where they essentially stole the gold medal from you. Rhodes Scholar, which again, phenomenal given the balance of the books and the ball. 11-year NBA career, first-round draft choice. Retired out of the NBA, entered into politics in the U.S. House of Reps. Following Congress, you successfully transitioned into a business career, entrepreneurial ventures, business ventures throughout. Very successful from all accounts there as well. And most recently, this very exciting endeavor around what was formerly the D1A Association, which is now Lead One, which you're the head of. Did I grab everything?
Well, yeah, that was good. I'd have to think about some of the other things, but you covered it well.
Oh, thanks. It's amazing what the internet can do these days. But I've had a chance to as we've gotten to know each other, spend some time doing a lot of reading from. You're also an author. I think you and I, although I'm not even in the same stratosphere, I think we see a similar mission associated with that, with the student athlete experience and you know, as you see the D1, which is now Lead One, you know, your unique qualifications to lead that endeavor. It's really exciting. So as we were talking about the Next Play podcast series, that's the essence of our discussion. It's this student athlete experience and what that means and represents college athletics, professional athletics into one's career. Maybe if we can start there. I'd love just to hear your perspective for those listeners who are out there who aren't as familiar with Lead One. If you can tell us a little bit more about it.
Lead One is an association of 129 of the largest college athletic programs, you know, comprising 10 conferences. They're the ones with big-time football, big-time basketball, and the athletic director in each of those schools is the representative in our association, so they're really the member. So we work with them on a whole host of missions, but that's really the makeup of Lead One.
Yeah. So it's the biggest of the big ones, Power Five and other top athletic.
And the group of five conference.
And the group of five. That's right. Yeah. And you have it's built similar to other organizations, board members who are representative of the group, and you're now leading it. How long have you been doing this now?
Just a little over a year. I pretty much started October 1 last year. Okay. So it's been just slightly over a year.
Yeah. So how has the first year gone?
Well, the first year has been sort of an indoctrination year because, whenever you get into an organization where there's 129 of anything, it takes time to get to know those 129 folks who make up the essence of this organization. And, it's not like when I was in Congress where you get thrust into 30-some members of Congress, 500, members of Congress, because you see them daily, you don't see these athletic directors daily. So it's hard to get to know them. So that was the first thing I had to do was to kind of get to know the ADs and get around and know the lay of the land, which is really what I've done in the last year. Plus, we had to really set up kind of what our goals were, what our strategic plan was going to be, and we've done that. As I was telling you a minute ago, when I came to Congress and they gave you a little picture book and took you several months to get to know 535 members of Congress, but that was hard. And similarly, when I came in here, there's ADs across the country, and they're changing constantly. There's a 20% turnover in athletic directors. And so part of the challenge was just get indoctrinated, which we did. We also kind of rebranded this whole association with a new name, new mission statement, and kind of just trying to take it in a different direction.
Yeah. Can you maybe expand a little bit more? It's interesting here in the reference of Congress. I imagine there's a lot of similarities between the work that you were doing in Capitol Hill to what you're now doing. I'm interested in learning more of Lead One's mission, because what you just said is kind of what we've seen here at Game Plan the last 8 years. If you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes. The landscape is constantly shifting. How's that impacting how Lead One has developed their mission?
Our mission is really about taking these students and preparing them to be leaders of the future. So and it's just not all the student athlete. I mean, in most athletic departments, there are as many students working in the athletic department, part-time and full-time, as there are athletes on scholarship, student athletes on scholarship. They work in the ticket office. They work as trainers or assistant coaches. So the whole enterprise is really about preparing students for the future. And that's probably the most important message because, the cheering stops for everybody at some point in time. And, at that point in time, they've got to take the lessons that they've learned and apply them to other pursuits. So the great thing about the college sports enterprise is that it can really imbue those lessons into not only student athletes, but students as well, and sometimes lifelong lessons that will help prepare them for whatever endeavor they choose to take on after their college career. So, our mission is about that ultimately, really making sure that we don't forget the why we do what we do. What is college sports all about if it's not preparing young people for a future? And so that's kind of the whole. That's really the whole summary of who we are. When you break it down tactically, we're trying to shape the rules of college sports where the ADs need to play a pivotal role in whatever legislation comes down from the NCAA, because they're the ones that live with it. They're the practitioners. They make the railroad run on time, and so they have to live with these rules, so they need to be a part of making them. And then, of course, the advocacy, advocating for this model, whether it's in Congress or with the commissioners or whatever. That's the essence of what we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How much of your experience as a student athlete and someone who's really successfully transitioned across various phases of life, how much are you drawing on that now in this new role? It just feels like
you draw it intangibly more than tangibly, because you take the lessons about hard work and being determined and not letting failure get in the way. And I mean, you take those intangible lessons, and then also you have to learn to work as a team player. You know, these are not solo ventures, so you have to work within it, especially within a group of 129 very different personalities and characters. I have to work with them to move the ball forward, and so that's, again, those are things I think you learn from your college sports days.
Yeah. And when you think about those 129, even though they are the largest 129 schools, you and I have talked in the past how the resources are still very disparate versus when you kind of rank those through and getting everyone on the same page, because everyone's mission is the same. It's working with the student athletes. How challenging is that as you start thinking about, the shaping rules and legislation and trying to understand resource allocation? Is that part of the Lead One mission?
Well, it is very important, because you think about the NCAA, they represent schools with $3 million of revenue to $200 million. So their disparity is much greater than ours. We are in the 20 to 30 million of revenue to 200 million. But still, that's a great disparity for schools, and it is a challenge. One of the things that we are trying to do is look at ways we can work together, which has never happened before. Doesn't even happen at the NCAA level, where we can look at opportunities for procurement, whether you're buying hotel rooms or charter air or insurance or healthcare. If we can do those things collectively, we can save money. And that's one way to lessen that disparity a little bit. And that's one of the things we're working on. We think that's an area of opportunity that we're pursuing.
Yeah. The collective nature of it makes a ton of sense. Can you give me a flavor for your day with Lead One? I'm interested. What are the things that are kind of impacting you the most right now?
Well, we just had our annual meeting in Dallas, and so we're now preparing for our annual meeting next year, which will be in Washington. So we have obviously there are logistical things that we have to take care of. It's going to be a spectacular event in Washington. We hope to, we're going to invite the new president or vice president, congressional leadership. A lot of the conferences will be there. So this is a very big change for this organization. We are holding committee meetings. We have 4 committees. We're working on a number of different issues within our little committee. So we have a board of 15, 17, and everybody's on a committee. So we break it down. We had 2 committee meetings today. We'll have 2 more this week, and then and we go through various different items of our board agenda, and then of course it all comes to our board. Our next board meeting will be in January at the NCAA convention. But there's a lot of work that we do in the committees ahead of time. Of course, then we're continuing to work on these procurement areas. We have a number of surveys going out to our members that we collect data that we can analyze so that we can make, informed decisions about which way we should go with procurement and so forth. I mean, those are some high points that we work on, just keeping in touch with, we give legislative updates to our members. So there's a lot of aspects to this.
Yeah. I know you and I've talked, and one of your experiences on Capitol Hill is, and I think that was part of you making the transition into Lead One, is the idea of helping Lead One and its members getting a better sense for what goes on in Washington, D.C., and eventually maybe even having more of a relationship there. It sounds like it's already happening, which is excellent.
Well, it is important. I mean, as Charles de Gaulle said, politics is too serious a business to leave to the politicians. You don't want to necessarily leave if college sports, if the issues ever come to Congress, you don't want to just leave it to members of Congress to figure it out. You want to work far ahead of time, laying the groundwork for the kind of model you want. The United States collegiate model is very unique. I mean, having gone to Oxford on the Rhodes Scholarship, college sports was not a big thing at Oxford. I mean, clearly the priority was education. The only exception may be crew, rowing crew. I mean, that was a somewhat bigger sport, but for the most part, I mean, it was not a high pressure endeavors. And the United States took a different tack. We decided to put these big time college sports programs on our campuses, and that has caused a balancing act for these institutions. It's a great marketing vehicle. It's given them a lot of connectivity to their fans, but there's at a price. When there's a scandal or something commercially happens that makes an institution look bad. And so the challenge is keeping that balance, and that's really something that I know all of our athletic directors are important that they keep the balance, because if they don't, they're going to continually be challenged by lawsuits, which is continuing because there's a lot of money in college sports, a lot of lawyers coming after it. And the most fundamental reason is they're trying to turn these student athletes into employees. Mm-hmm. And, it's a matter of time probably until they win some of these cases, and we will have to go to Congress. And so that's why it's important to begin building those relationships earlier rather than later.
Yeah. And I'm glad you are, and certainly you leading that charge is valuable. It's a good segue. When we started Game Plan 8 years ago, it was this essence of the student athlete experience that I felt so valued, making the transfer. And I was not an All-American basketball player at Maryland by any stretch, a paltry player that barely got in the court for Lehigh, but it's still valued. It was that part of that experience, as you alluded to a little earlier. I mean, how today, given the different perspectives that you've had, and one that you have that's a very interesting one now, how do you value that student athlete experience, the value of the scholarship for that athlete today? How do you put words around that?
Well, I think the student athlete today, from a benefit standpoint, has never been better off. Literally, they get this tax-free windfall from an education, books, tuition, fees, cost of attendance, room, board, emergency money if it's needed, unlimited health care. I mean, they have, they travel the world. The benefits are, far in excess when I went to school. I mean, we got our scholarship at $15 a month in laundry money. Today, kids, that cost of attendance can sometimes be cash in their pocket. The negative on it has been that with the increase in benefits that's come with increased demands on them. Mm-hmm. Their time is, less their own. It's so programmed. When I was at University of Maryland, when the season was over, we were pretty much done till the next season started. We didn't have people telling us what to do or coaches telling us what to do. And even during the season, we practiced for a few hours. That was it. But today, these kids are programmed 24/7. And so, that's the balancing act. In many respects, they're better off. But in other respects, it's become a, highly pressurized, time-intensive endeavor for these young athletes. And so, that's how it's evolved, too. And it's much more structured arena than when I was there.
Yeah. That's a term we often use because of the structure. And so in many respects, by going through that experience and coming out on it on the other end in a successful way, set you up in a strong way for life. But I think your point's well taken. It's a balance as you go through it. Is it tilting one way or the other too much?
They're programmed, and sometimes part of life is learning to manage your own time. And right now, someone else is managing a good portion of their time, and that's not always beneficial for development post-student athlete. And that's why that one of the areas that is very critical now is this whole time management legislation, which we're working on, and clearly with the intent of trying to lighten up some of the demands on these student athletes.
Yeah. And, if you do that, then it frees up opportunities for lots of things. Me selfishly speaking, looking at student athletes having internship experiences and the like. When you were at Maryland, did you ever have the chance to work summer? They probably weren't calling them internships experiences in the 70s.
Well, I was on the Olympics one summer. Summer before that was after my freshman year. I worked in the United States Senate for Mike Mansfield. I worked in the U.S. Senate Democratic cloakroom, and that was as a matter of fact, Joe Biden had just got elected to the Senate, so it's amazing. But that was like 1971. That was a very, very important experience to me, and probably one of the reasons why I ended up going into politics, because I had that experience. So those things are very important. One of the things that it's funny, this Congress right now is the only Congress, probably in the last 50, maybe 70 years, that has not had an outstanding former student athlete in the United States Congress. And when I was there, we had Bill Bradley, Jim Bunning, Jack Kemp. We had some Mo Udall was a great basketball player. But today there's none. And part of it, I think, is the lack of opportunities these kids have to try these experiences out. And I know Bill Bradley worked in the Senate. He worked in Washington one year when he was at Princeton. So I think it's important that kids have these opportunities.
Yeah. That must have made for some seriously good pickup games amongst Congress.
Well, it's funny. Bill didn't play much. I actually played a lot. It's one of the great things about in the afternoon we'd get out and play a basketball game, and it was Democrats, Republicans.
No way.
We didn't play. We broke up. It wasn't always Democrats, Republicans. Yeah. We actually had an annual game where we played Republicans, but normally we just split the teams up.
That's great.
When we were playing it formally, it was not a Democrat-Republican game. As a matter of fact, some of the best friends I had in the Congress were Republicans who I played basketball with. Today, they don't play those basketball games anymore. That's that's another kind of commentary on the dysfunction of Congress. That they don't go down and play a sport together. I think that's sad, because that was one of the best experiences I had as in Congress.
Yeah. The diversity, the experiences you pull together on a team, you see things in a different way. It is an interesting commentary. It must have made for a lot of fun. The red and the blue going out in the court. It's good. When you think about the student athletes today, and I know you do get a chance, not just with your alma mater at Maryland, but with schools that you get to visit with, what impresses you about these young people? You shared a little bit about, their high programming, but what kind of jumps out at you, today about these folks who are going through it? And
well, first of all, the athleticism of these athletes, they're so incredible because the training is so sophisticated compared to when I played. I mean, I would have loved to have the weight training and all that, nutrition. Kids have so much opportunity in that area. So there's tremendous athleticism. The other thing is that the discipline. They have to be, to stay on this track. It's enormously challenging and demanding, and they have to be disciplined, because from 6 in the morning to midnight, they are busy as can be.
Mm-hmm.
and they barely have enough time to get sleep. So it's tough. It's a tough grind.
Yeah, it is.
Being a college athlete. So I admire them for the intensity of the pursuit today. It was intense when I played, but it was much more intense today. I mean, there are not a lot of chemistry majors in college sports today. Probably very few in basketball and football, because you couldn't do that kind of curriculum and be a college athlete. You couldn't. The labs, the demands, intensity of the course. I think there's rarely will you find a chemistry major in big time college basketball, football.
Yeah. Which I think goes again to what we were talking about, that time commitment. If there's an individual who has, the acumen and the interest around, those prospective subjects, I think it's a wonderful pursuit to try to balance that. They find ways. I think that's one of the things that I found working with a lot of the young folks is they find a way, and it's whether it's staying up late or it's persistence. It's they call it grit. It's phenomenal to watch. So I appreciate you saying that. On the landscape in college athletics, you touched a little bit on the time demand and the view on that for legislation. What other topics, and maybe that is the primary topic that kind of is catching your eye that you're spending some time with today, but I'd be interested at a more of a national level. What topics are discussion that you feel would impact that student athlete experience?
Well, I think the big philosophical issues are competitive equity. I mean, the NCAA has a rule book a mile long. And it's basically to keep some kind of competitive equity within the disparate schools that are part of its composition. And so, thinking through that, I mean, is there a better way than having, thousands of rules that cause compliance issues and so forth? It's a real morass now. Those are issues that, how do you deal with that? That's a challenging one. Also, how do you deal with when there's academic misconduct issues on campuses? I mean, theoretically, the schools are supposed to have the disciplinary process. I mean, what's the role of the NCAA in that? I mean, if the school's not doing it, again, that gets back to the competitive equity. If the school's going to say, look, our athletes, we don't care if there's some academic misconduct. We want to win, and it's our school. We can do what we want. Does the NCAA have a role in that? Those are very challenging, very challenging subjects that get to the heart of, the competition in college sports.
Yeah, and not easy. And as you said, philosophical in nature, which goes back to, I guess, your initial point of rallying together 129 members in your group, but also going after folks like the NCAA, right? Which is probably an outside firm, but similar missions, to an extent. Well,
you have to work with everybody collaboratively to try to accomplish things. And I think the important thing is that let the athletic directors who really run their programs have a voice in this. So
yeah. Well, we're coming up on our time here. I think one of the things personally I'm very interested in is, as you think about your experiences, the student athlete, and I'm not going to lob it out as general advice, but you get to see so many young ladies and young men moving through that transition and the current state of it. What advice would you offer as they go through this? And you shared that internship experience, and it might be that. I'm very interested in just someone who's gone through it and now leads the opportunity.
I think those real life experiences are important. College sports it's almost like a cocoon in a way. And there's an artificiality to it that I think you have to sometimes step back and say, look, how do I get back to the reality of the world? Because it's not going to last forever. I don't care if you're the greatest athlete in the world or you're the president of the United States. It doesn't last forever. Yeah. At some point in time, you're going to be an ex-athlete or an ex-congressman or ex-whatever. And, that's if you think that there's a permanence to this exalted position that you hold by virtue of playing sports or whatever, that's the perspective you'll find when you're 50, 60 years old looking back and think, wow, those were special times, and I should have really, really understood and honored that speciality, because it does go away. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes kids get caught up in the minute moment. They don't have the long-range view, which is important for them. The long-range view is that the good things that they got out of college sports, working hard, playing with others, being goal-oriented, being focused, being persistent, are the things that they should carry on and not get caught up in necessarily the hoopla of it. They're great moments, but they're fleeting.
Yeah. Was that a tough transition for you? I mean, you've had such a diversified career. Your athletic identity, was that a tough transition?
Well, I literally left the NBA in May, and I was elected to Congress in November. I was a candidate for Congress while I was in the NBA. I'm the only one that I think in college sports to ever do that. Well, I mean, in professional sports to ever do that, where you actually are a candidate for Congress while you're playing in the NBA. So I had hardly any time to transition. And, it wasn't that difficult a transition for me, because there were a lot of similarities to the job. They were high pressure, lots of time demands. You had to deal with the press. You had to deal with your teammates, whether they're congressmen or basketball players. So it wasn't that difficult a transition, but I think sports was good preparation for the leadership skills.
Yeah. Yeah. We hear so much about the identity, and just thinking about your career. I mean, I was curious. I know it transitions well, but it's still hard to make the transition at times. When you think back, are you a basketball player? Are you a congressman? Are you a business guy? If you had to stack rank them, where's this kind of fit?
That would be you're really a composite. I mean, you have to look at the fact that you look at all the elements. I mean, most people have parts of their life, so that's similar with mine. Was Ronald Reagan a politician or an actor? I mean, He was both, and that's parts of his life he did both ways. So it's more of a composite than one or the other. Yeah.
That's a good answer that someone's had some good political training on. That's very well said, very well stated. Tom, thank you. We're up on our time here. It's wonderful to hear your perspective on so many important, critical things that are going on in the world of college sports, and feel very good that you're in the role that you are with Lead One, and I certainly appreciate your time in sharing that.
Thank you. Today. Thanks, Ben.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is H to the OV.
Thanks for listening to the Next Play podcast series brought to you by Game Plan. Join us weekly as industry leaders discuss the journey of the athlete. To learn more about Game Plan and the work that we do, please visit wearegameplan.com. Thanks so much.